Good evening. Welcome to the Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Environment Committee meeting of Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. I am the chair of the committee, Councilwoman Marilyn Rossetti. With me, I have Councilman John Gale, who is a voting member, Councilman Nick LeBron, who is a voting member, and Councilman James Sanchez. Also, let me read the Hartford HPA-TV stuff first. So we're on HPA-TV, Comcast, and Frontier Government channels 96 and 6032. It will also be streamed via hpa-tv.org, the HPA-TV Facebook page, and HPA-TV's Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon TV apps. It will also be rebroadcast and made available on the HPA-TV YouTube channel. So there you go. With us also, we have Chris Dupuis, and I know I'm not saying that correctly, Chris Hayes, Chair of PRAC, Claudio Bazzano from the Board of Ed, Colin Billings from Southwest NRZ, Don Emanuel. If I don't say where you're from, it's because I don't know. Eric O'Brien, Frank Della Ripa from Public Works, Jessica Bremer from the park, the watershed. I think she's the new chair. Attorney Jim Del Fisco, Julia Jack from Developmental Services, Director Looney, Public Works, Nat Gale, I always forget your title, Nat. What is it?
Director of Capital Projects and Operations.
Thank you. And Assistant Director Stewart from Recreation. I think I named everybody on the call. With that, we will start with the first agenda item, which is Mayor Bronin with accompanying resolution authorizing and empower the city to grant CNG an easement. So it's an easement from the city of Hartford to CNG, and it had a public hearing on April 18th. It went for an 824 review. I'm not sure if it came back. Does anybody know if it came back?
Yeah. Hi, this is Jim Del Visco, Marilyn.
Yep.
And yes, it did. It was approved or given a positive review from what I've seen.
All right, thank you. And I believe, Claudio, I believe you're here to speak to this, are you not? We can't hear you.
I don't believe I'm here to speak to this, but I'm here to attend if there's any questions.
So Director Looney.
Yes.
Let's all get on the same page. Director Looney, I think we thought Mr. Bazzano was going to speak to this.
I've had some discussions with Mr. Bazzano and our Corporation Counsel Office Representative, Jim Del Visco. And we actually have, I believe, a representative from CNG tonight to discuss this a little bit, as well as Attorney Del Visco, who was involved in kind of shepherding this along. The requested easement has been reviewed by our department, by Frank Della Ripa, our city engineer. He's also on the call to address any questions or concerns. But at this point, I think I'd actually would turn it over to Attorney Del Visco to just explain the origin of this easement. And again, it's an easement to extend what I believe is a natural gas line that terminates in some portion of the Weaver High School property. And this easement would allow for the extension of that gas line over to the UHart campus, where they're looking to install a fuel cell on some land over there.
Okay.
So Attorney Del Visco, I think if you want to jump in.
Thank you, Director. Let me just add that I left out, I'm sorry, Adam Murphy from the Office of Sustainability. I don't know how I did that. And I see that Donna Swar has drawn the call from BRAC, and Councilman Mitchum, who is not a voting member, but is a councilman. So Attorney Del Visco.
Yes. Thank you. Michael Looney has given us a lot of good facts on this. I was brought in, as I understand it, there's a project to create a fuel cell at the University of Hartford. They need gas to run that fuel cell. they need to connect it to the existing fuel line that's at the high school, at Weaver High School next door. That gas line ends somewhere on that property. And what they're going to do, or what they want to do, is get an easement from the city to allow them to extend that gas line. It'll go under the railroad tracks. There's a railroad that runs between the high school property and the university property, from what I understand, and then connect to the fuel cell. I understand that fuel cells require natural gas in order to run. And my involvement was to, as Michael said, to move things along. And then ultimately, if there's an easement to be put together, I'm going to work on that with probably counsel for the gas company, in conjunction with people from University of Hartford. And that's the background that I have.
Thank you, Attorney DeVilsco. So, again, I know there's been interest, so I will open it up to my colleagues for questions. Councilman LeBron, Gale, Mitchum, Sanchez, who would like to go first? Let's do alphabetical. Councilman Gale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does anybody have a map? One picture is worth 1,000 words. Could somebody just show us a map of where at Weaver this thing ends? Is it at the end of the parking lot there? Where does it end? And just show us the 100 feet. Where's it going? Where does it end? Where's it going to? Does anybody have that?
I don't believe I have a map right at my disposal at this moment, Councilman.
Do you have an understanding? Like, I mean, I can kind of visualize the Weaver parking lot. Claudio, does anybody have an understanding where the line is? And
Sure, Councilman, from what I've seen of the map and the drawings, the easement area is on the west end of Weaver Building, closest to the railroad tracks. And the concept is to extend the gas line from Weaver across the tracks and onto the University of Hartford property. And from what I've been told, running a fuel cell requires a certain amount of pressure in the gas line. And the gas line that runs to Weaver carries adequate pressure to sustain the fuel cell. Because one of the questions that was brought up is why does it come through Weaver and not through the West Hartford side? So that explanation was due to the pressure needed to run the fuel cell. My involvement has been from the beginning to make sure that whatever part the Hartford School is impacted, that I'm kept up to speed. As far as the scheduling, if it continues to be approved, they'll have to coordinate with me. So whatever happens doesn't impact the operation of the school, the programming of the school. It sounds like a pretty simple. Once it's dug and installed, it basically stays underground for forever, per se. So any impact is very just initial on the construction side.
And with respect to that impact, do we know if the connection and the trench are going to disturb the existing paved parking lot, or is it all going to be
I'm sure
grassy areas?
No, I'm sure based on the drawing I've seen, it runs across the paved parking area between the parking on the west end near the loading dock and the turnaround, somewhere between that area there. The final determination won't happen until they actually stake it out. From the drawing I've seen, it is from there and it is across the paved area.
And they will, of course, be responsible to return the area to exactly as it is at present once they're completed.
That I'll defer to Council Jim DelVisco as the attorney representing the city to make sure that the city's interests are assessed and addressed.
Thank you, Claudio. That's correct, Mr. Gale.
Okay, and then last question. I'm assuming based on what you've said, that the gas pipe, I mean, I know the gas pipe that comes into my house is about, an inch in diameter, maybe an inch and a quarter. I'm assuming that the gas pipe that feeds Weaver and that they're going to connect to the University of Hartford is a slightly larger gas pipe with more pressure behind it. Do we know any specifics about the size of this pipe and whether, I'm also assuming, but confirm for us, this is not going to negatively affect any of the power plant that Weaver High, I'm assuming.
That's my understanding, sir. Exactly what you said, with probably about as much information as you just expressed. That's my understanding. It won't have an impact on the building. It won't have impact on the operations of the building. And the pipe is obviously larger than a residential. And I thought Mike Looney said someone from CNG is attending. Maybe that person has additional information to share some of the specifics.
This is Jim Delvisco. I understand that there should be someone here from the university and possibly someone from the city's energy consulting company. Is anyone here from those places?
Who do we have here?
This is Chris Dupuy. Yep, I'm with the University of Hartford. The AVP.
You have a really bad connection,
involved
Chris.
with this project. In the room with me is
Chris,
Mike Stassi from Bridge Energy.
Chris, you have a really bad
Bridge Energy.
Chris, you have a really bad connection, Chris. Really bad connection. We can't hear you.
I'm still.
Yep, not good. Nope. No. Nothing.
Can you hear me now? I turned off my video.
Talk a little bit. Go ahead.
I'm still here.
Talk a little, I said. Let's hear
Can you
you.
hear me still, Madam Chairperson?
Madam Chairperson said, talk a little bit.
I am talking.
Okay, get going.
Grab my headphones real quick. I'm trying. Reconnecting.
Madam Chair, while he's attempting to get some
Can you hear me
audio
now?
here, I lied. I have one more question, and that is, are we going to get paid? Are we going to get paid anything for this easement?
Yeah, if you want to.
Councilman, my understanding is that there is no fee assigned to this easement.
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. Gale. What
Is there a
Michael just said.
reason? Is there a reason why I mean, I know we want to be good neighbors with CNG, but there's some quid pro quo. Do they give us free gas service?
As I understood it, this was always viewed as something where we were helping out the gas company and we were helping out the university, and there was never one mention of any compensation in this at all.
Well,
I mean,
I'd love to help
helping the
out both of
university
them.
is one thing, but helping out CNG, I think, is, as a city, is somewhat ludicrous, but
I think it was helping CNG help the university. I should have phrased it that way.
so Chris, I think, said he logged off, but is he there? And then I'll get to you, Councilman Sanchez. Let's just see if we can, if we can't get anything from him, then I'm going to go on to my
I'm still here.
Alex.
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, I apologize for the audio difficulties. I don't know what's going on here. So the gas main is being run from the Weaver side because the gas service that comes to our west side of campus does not have adequate volume or pressure to support the fuel cell project. And it's my understanding from CNG that it is a 6-inch main that is being run. And this will not impact your service. And I believe they have an existing right away to the Weaver property. It does end in that paved area in the turnaround at the west side of your property.
And again, while you're there, is
You
it
still
run
hear me?
from Weaver because
We're
proximity?
having connection problems again.
Okay. You know what? We're gonna go on to my colleagues because I can't do this. Councilman LeBron?
It's not run from Weaver from proximity. It's actually much further away.
Yeah, so just because of the audio, and Chris, I understand your frustration. I had technology issues at my last meeting, so I definitely understand. So through you, Madam Chair, I do have a couple questions. So the first question is, I heard either Claudio Bazzano or I think it was Mr. Bazzano say that from the drawing that he saw. So I know Councilman Gale stated, were there any renderings or any drawings? We were told there isn't none, but then Mr. Bazzano said that there was a drawing. So is there in fact some kind of rendering or drawing?
Through you, Madam Chair, what I indicated to Councilman was that I did not have the drawing at my disposal right at this moment at my computer at home.
Okay.
But there is a drawing, and Mr. Bazzano has seen that drawing.
All right, so it would have been, it'd be helpful for us to see the drawing. I'm very visual in that way because all we have is language. So if you can share that drawing. The second question I have is a fuel cell, right? Like, I'm not an electrical engineer. So like, why is a fuel cell needed? Why is it important to University of Hartford? Why do we have to go through Weaver? Like, I need to weigh the legitimacy of going through Weaver and the importance of University of Hartford. I believe in good collaborative partnerships, but I feel no compelling interest because I don't know why they need a fuel cell, what a fuel cell is, why is it so important, and why we have to go through Weaver School. So that's the second thing. The third question I have is for CNG, but they don't have good service, and that is the construction piece. The biggest piece around construction, and the question that I would have is, what are they going to dig up in particular? Without a visual, there's nothing for us to see and where they're going to dig up. And then the other concern around that would be patching it back. Oftentimes, I've learned in my last 3 years that people dig up projects and they don't bring it back the same way. They patch it up and move forward. And so because of that, Madam Chair, what I would suggest or recommend through you is that we vote on this when we have enough adequate information so that way we can vote on it and make an informed decision. Because right now I have no idea what's going on. It just seems like, okay, let's dig up Weaver. Let's put a fuel cell for University of Hartford because they said so. And that's that. And that's personally the way I feel right now.
Thank you, Councilman. Let's go through the colleagues and then we'll go back to people who may be able to answer some of this. Not that may quench what we need to see this through to resolution. Councilman Mixtum.
By the way, Marilyn Rossetti,
Yes.
I just forwarded the map to Mr. LeBron, Mr. Gale, and to you.
Okay.
That I have, which depicts, it's a yellow line and it depicts where this
All right.
gas line is. It was needed in order to do the 824 review at planning and zoning.
And it could have been needed for us. So
Yes,
Councilman Mixtum, you're next, and then we'll end with alphabetically Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you much, Chairwoman. So I agree with Councilman LeBron that it just seems like a thing where it would be good for this committee to have more information. My question, though, is following up on what Councilman Gale had asked and the answer that came, which was that, we're doing this out of a gesture of goodwill to CNG and the university. And is there any legal obligation that we do that? Could we just say, you know what, this is property rights, pay us? I guess that's a question for the attorney.
We could say that. We could have negotiated compensation. However, I will tell you this. I've been working on this for months. Not one person has said, let's try to get some money out of the gas company or out of the university. I asked about it and the response was, we're doing this for the university and for the gas company, but primarily for the university. And that's what I know about that part.
Well, Council Del Visco, it hadn't come to our committee yet, so I think that might be a part of why no one said anything. You're now hearing from council people. Councilman Mitchum, did you have anything else to say?
Just that. I mean, you know, I like a university as much as anybody, but they're a university in a neighboring town and they have some loot and this is property rights. I think they should pay for it.
Councilman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, I share the same concerns as my colleagues here. And, you know, one of my thoughts is that if we do allow this, then wherever they lay that line, it becomes a right of way, I believe. And now we just gave up some property permanently. That's one. Two, if I'm looking at my phone on the maps, I believe they would have to go either under or over the Park River North. And that's another concern with the environment. I'm looking at the map and I see there's an extension of Tower Avenue that extends to the south side of Weaver High School. And I don't understand why they can't just go straight down the street if we do permit this. But at the same token, giving them this right of way would be giving up the priority of the city. We determine will happen with this construction. The other thing is to Councilman LeBron's point. The outreach has been in the past because I've dealt with so many constituents in the Blue Hills neighborhood. One and two. The temporary patch and work is a disaster here in the South End. I'm not sure if you've driven on West Preston Street, but between Maple Avenue and Fairfield Avenue, that is a disaster. And there's sinkholes. Not been properly done. It's just a disaster. And I think we need to hold them accountable for all these projects that's going on and throughout the city of Hartford. They have not been the best of an agency with our folks here in the city. It's just my comment, my statement. So I do have the same concerns. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Sanchez. I guess so there is no one here from CNG, correct?
That's my understanding. They're not here. They were not here representing themselves.
Okay. And Chris, explain to me again who you represent, Chris Dupuy.
Yes, hi, thank you. Yes, Chris Dupuy, I represent the University of Hartford. I'm in charge of our facilities department on campus and execute a lot of our capital projects. And so I was here to try and help offer up and answer any questions that might be raised. And I also have some of my project partners from Doosan here as well.
Okay. So I think we're to the point. I have two voting members here along with myself, Councilman Gale and Councilman LeBron. I know Councilman LeBron has made not a motion, but made a statement for a potential motion. I don't know how we want to proceed. If you want to ask Mr. Dupuy anything else, or if you'd like to, Councilman Gale.
I would like to ask something else because Mr. Dupuy just indicated he had somebody with him from, I think he said Doosan. I don't know if that's the fuel cell manufacturers. I think since we've had the questions from Councilman LeBron and we have the fuel cell people, why don't they tell us? Let's all get a little education as to what a fuel cell is, what a fuel cell can do, why the university is looking to put one in. Maybe it turns out it's a great thing for everybody.
And also if you could add the dangers, if there's any.
Okay. This is Chris Dupuy. I have here with me, I have Mike Sassy from Bridge Energy Services. Can you hear me okay without my headphones?
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I went to a wired connection versus my wireless connection in the office earlier. I apologize for the poor service. I was going to have Mike speak a few words about the project and some of the benefits, and I believe he has, worked with the city on some other fuel cell projects for the city over the past few years as well. Mike?
Hi, good evening. Mike Sassy, Bridge Energy. Yeah, I've helped the city of Hartford as well as the University of Hartford in terms of adding distributed generation to take advantage of the state-approved projects and LREC grants that help make the projects economical. And as far as the fuel cell is a Class 1 renewable power source in Connecticut, and it adds grid independence, and it's a more efficient and carbon-free source of power. We find clients are incentivized by the state of Connecticut to put these types of units in to help with their carbon footprint reduction. And they add resiliency and grid independence. The fuel cell goes very well compatibility-wise to battery storage. And battery storage is really our future in terms of adding resiliency to the grid and getting grid independence overall. The project is a added resource in terms of renewable power, and it does rely on high pressure gas. It's not a combustible power source. It's an electronic electrolysis that separates carbon from hydrogen, and it basically runs on the carbon that comes from the natural gas. So it's a much more efficient process in terms of power generation. And like the city, the city has a fuel cell up on the Hartford Public Safety Complex. You've got a Bloom fuel cell in the Parkville microgrid project, and they're both adding, like this project to the University of Hartford, they're adding resiliency and grid independence for the city of Hartford. It's all the common source here is Connecticut natural gas, and we really have no choice but to tie in where the high pressure line is located at Weaver. In fact, Weaver High School is a very good opportunity for a similar project whereby the city could save upwards to $100,000 a year or more in terms of the energy spend. Again, adding, renewable Class 1 generation from Connecticut. So,
Councilman Gale, Councilman LeBron, are there any other questions while we have?
Sure.
Or who was council? I know we were with Councilman Gale. Go ahead, Gale, and then Nick.
I'll defer to Councilman. I'm prepared to make a suggestion, but I'll defer to Councilman LeBron's questions before I move.
And Councilman LeBron, before you, can I just know? I don't know if it's logistics. Was West Hartford approached before Hartford?
This is Chris Dupuy from the University of Hartford. The only reason we are proposing to get the gas from this location is the gas service on the west side, we were told by CNG, does not have the pressure or capacity to serve the fuel cells. We have gas mains from CNG on our campus already from the west side. They are too small and too low of pressure to serve the fuel cell, even though they are much closer.
So CNG suggested Hartford.
CNG requires Hartford. They say engineering analysis, it cannot get enough gas from the West Hartford side. There's not enough capacity or pressure.
So the people who are actually going to do it are the people who made the decision on where it should go. No one else was asked. I don't know. Go ahead, Councilman LeBron.
I have my energy consultant here to verify all the technical components, and they agree that there is insufficient gas pressure already on our campus from the West Hartford side. That's what I have been told.
So, Mr. Dupuy, and thank you for coming and representing the university. And I think in this, and through you, Madam Chair, I think in the spirit of all of us, I would say we all love collaboration, right? But the first question I have is, what is the benefit for Weaver, for Hartford? What is the benefit of having this fuel cell in West Hartford at the University of Hartford? What are the benefits for Hartford?
I don't know if I can get into the specifics of the benefits for Hartford at this point. This fuel cell, despite us having a West Hartford address, will be located within the city of Hartford limits. Our campus has the town line running through it. The western edge of our campus is West Hartford. A vast majority of our main campus, our 200 acres that are developed, are within the city of Hartford limits. So I imagine all the building permits will be pulled within the city of Hartford. So there will be some form of a revenue source during the construction phase when Doosan, who is doing a turnkey design, bid, build, own and operate of the fuel cell, we are only buying the electricity from them. They'll be, the construction permit fees will be with the city of Hartford jurisdiction.
Okay. And the second question to you, Madam Chair, and maybe it's Claudio, Mr. Bazzano, is any of the construction that they're going to have to do going through any of the athletic fields or the usage of the scholars at Weaver? Would it obstruct any seasons, any practices, or anything of that nature?
Based on what I've seen from the drawings, that's the only information I have. It doesn't appear that it's crossing any athletic fields. As far as will it disrupt any athletic programs, that's still to be determined. Nothing has been expressed to me about when this will happen, how long it will take, but I made it clear that before anything happens, we would have to review it and approve when it happens, so it doesn't interrupt our programming.
Yeah, so I think it further denotes the fact that we need more information. So the last question, Mr. Dupuy, is there any historical precedent where the roles were reversed, where the university from a construction or energy side was courteous and gave easement or property back to the city of Hartford for our benefit? If you can share that with us, because we all believe in partnership, but if you could give like 1, 2, or 3 examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So I may not be aware of all of them. The first one that jumps to my mind is the University High School on Mark Twain Drive. That was on both City of Hartford and University of Hartford property. And I believe you have to have a value to it. We did a $1 lease, 50 or 100-year lease to give the property to allow that project to be constructed about 10 years ago. We also collaborated with the city on getting federal grant monies to refinish Mark Twain Drive and extend that when it used to end at Annie Fisher, and extending it all the way to the high school and then to the university's main campus. Yeah. So those are 2 examples where we collaborated together, and we actually gave up property to build that high school.
Yeah, thank you. And so that's to me, that's important information. Thank you for sharing that. I'll lend my time, Madam Chair, to my other council colleagues.
Councilman Gale.
Madam Chair, I would like to share the screen and try to show everybody the map. I think we've had a lot of discussion about the map, and it would be probably very helpful. May I do that?
Yes, please do.
I don't know. Am I sharing the right thing here?
Yep, that's what they sent us.
That's the map? Okay. So
that's the map. Very, very detailed.
But I think probably the key feature here, though, in answer to questions, and maybe Claudio Bazzano can confirm this, I'm understanding that the pipeline is going to extend. It's going to be this yellow line that we're looking at. And that certainly looks like it's nowhere near any of the athletic fields, from my understanding of Weaver. It looks like it's at the far end of even the driveway, where the turnaround is, and is on very little of Weaver's property. But I think it's helpful if everybody can see it. And Mr. Bazzano, is that correct? That this is nowhere near any of the athletic fields?
That's my assumption based on this drawing that I can provide. I don't have anything more defined than what this drawing is. This is the same drawings I was shown, and there aren't any fields in that spot.
So I would have one more question of our corp counsel, and then I'd be prepared to put something forward, Madam Chair.
Yep, get rid of the map, Councilman.
Got it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if I may, to Jim Delvesco, Mr. Delvesco, in construction projects, it's pretty common for a bond to be posted to ensure that the contractor completes the work as designed. I don't know if there's any particular prohibitions with respect to the city doing business with Connecticut Natural Gas. So my question is, couldn't we agree to allow this to provide the easement, provided that an appropriate bond is placed to ensure the completion of the construction and the restoration of the land at the conclusion?
Yeah, as far as I know, I see nothing wrong with having that as part of the project. I can't think of anything that would prohibit us from getting that from them.
In that case, Madam Chair, I'd be prepared to move to send this back to council with a favorable recommendation with the amendment, however, that the approval requires CNG to post an appropriate bond to ensure that post-construction, the land is returned to exactly the state in which they found it.
And before we vote on that, how would we know that happens before we vote on it on Monday? How will we know that language is added or it's secured or discussed before we vote on it on Monday?
The easement, any of the legal documents that are put together are done by my office. They're done by me. It wouldn't happen. It would happen only with those requirements and those conditions.
I think, Madam Chair, to your question, the report from this committee should indicate that my motion is to send it back favorably, provided that it is amended to include the bonding language, and then we would amend it on the floor.
Okay.
Right.
That's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Councilman Mitchum.
Thank you. I'm not a voting member, but I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on that proposal, which is that it still seems to me that, I heard some mention of that the purpose of these fuel cells is to render many thousands of dollars in savings a year on electricity bills or on energy bills, I'm sorry. So it seems like someone's getting a benefit, and that someone is the University of Hartford. And we're giving a thing away. And I think we should negotiate a little harder and get some money or something, some more concrete promise of benefit in the future than goodwill. Because we do a lot of, as a city, we do a lot of goodwill for our neighbors. We don't necessarily get so much back. And I don't mean the University of Hartford, I just mean in general. So my recommendation to my colleagues would be to drive a harder bargain.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Sanchez. We have a motion on the floor, but discussion, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to piggyback on Councilman Mickden's comment that is there, and this question is for Chris and Claudio. Is there a possibility where that if we do approve this, is there a possibility where Weaver can benefit from the energy savings from that fuel cell as well? Is there some kind of combination where, because it seems close enough, and again, as I said, it seems like that line is going to the going to flow through a narrow street, an extension of Tower Avenue that's on the west side of Weaver, and then going through some normal ground and connecting with, I think it was University Drive or something like that. It seems close enough that is there a possibility where Weaver can benefit as well from this fuel cell system?
To you, Madam. Sir, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know, but I'm sure the fuel cell can power Weaver. But I don't know if anybody be interested in having that conversation.
Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
I would have to talk with my senior administration to have conversations like that. And my understanding is that it would have to be some kind of a virtual metering credit or some form like that, because the physical location of the fuel cell itself is in our parking lot C, which is close to our electrical substation. So we have to physically tie in behind our substation electric meter from Eversource. So there's no direct wire connection that we could do, but we can certainly have further conversations with the appropriate city representatives and my senior administration to talk about how we might be able to make this more appealing to the city of Hartford. But I'm not empowered to offer anything on the spot right here tonight.
Okay,
But
thank
we
you.
can certainly have those conversations.
And through you, Madam President, are you talking about the parking lot where you have this gigantic generator? So when there's a rain event, that generator is set so high because that parking lot floods out? Is that the parking lot?
Yes, it is down in near the generators. Yeah, those are our microgrid generators.
So my thought is that when creating the trench for this gas line to go through, that's an opportunity to put a conduit in the power line. Also, at the same token, creating a savings as far as having the transmitting line from that fuel cell to support Weaver High School, and that way, that's our benefit, I think, and I think that's a great opportunity for us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Again, I know there's a motion. I do want to make one final comment. And Councilwoman LeBron asked Chris Dupuy to mention where there had been times where they felt the university gave to the city of Hartford. And you mentioned two, and there may be others, but to Councilman Mitchum's point, I think we need to continue to look at opportunities where we're just not the ones giving, that there are opportunities where we benefit. But with that said, there is a motion on the floor. Councilman Gale?
Having heard all of this and my motion's never gotten second, I'll withdraw my motion and change it and make a second motion that we just postpone this in committee till the next committee meeting, waiting for a response back from Mr. Dupuy and the University of Hartford to see what kind of metering credits we might be able to.
And now that you've made that motion, I'm glad you said that, because I'd like CNG to be at the table. I feel we're at a disadvantage without them here. So there is a motion on the floor to postpone. Is there a second?
So I'll second in a quick statement, if I can, and I know we need to move on, Madam Chair. What I would also recommend, so I make a motion, a quick statement, and then you would ask if there's any people that want to make a discussion, right? Is that how it goes? So let me just second the motion. All right, let's do it that way.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion now?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So the discussion that I have is in my 3 years now, I can't believe it's 3 years already that I've been on council, I've seen various renderings, a lot of different renderings. And you're talking about a project that has CNG, University of Hartford, electrical engineers, all of these like experts. And the map that we're given is a dotted line with a highlighter, like, right? And so it's like, I get it, but like if someone can come with a better map, and I'm not trying to knock anyone, maybe it's just because the timing or what have you, but oftentimes I'm going to speak for myself on behalf of council colleagues. And I'm not saying that it's at this moment right now, but oftentimes when folks see like they're not prepared, it seems like there's a lack of importance on what seriousness. Thank you. On what, on what we vote on. And that's what it feels to me. That's number one with that map, or the fact if it's an official map. Number two, since it's a dotted line and drawn by someone with a yellow highlighter and it looks like it doesn't touch the athletic field, I'm not 100% sure that's not the case. And so, it may, and in any construction projects, it may be elongated. And Weaver and our schools, we don't need any disruption. And I'm really, really concerned about that. So if we could come back.
So
with
we
Matt-
have a motion and a second.
Yes, second. That was my discussion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of said motion?
Aye,
Aye. Against, abstain, motion passes. Thank you very much.
thank you.
That will now, thank you, bring us on to agenda item 2, which is the resolution supporting the Park River and its tributaries. And I believe we have, Adam, are you here to speak to that? Who's here from the city to speak to that?
I am here from the city to speak to that.
Yep.
So through you, Chairwoman, my name is Adam Murphy. I am the Sustainability Assistant in the Office of Sustainability. I came here just to demonstrate support for concepts that are raised in this resolution and to further the city's commitment to climate stewardship and supporting acts of climate resiliency. So that is what I have to say on that. And I think there's a lot of great ideas that came forward in this resolution by the proponents. And I look forward to further dialogue and conversations with community members and continuing conversations that have begun about this topic.
Thank you, Adam. And I know Councilman Gale and I sponsored this resolution, so I would open the floor up for questions, and I would start with Councilman Gale.
I think we have someone else here from the,
Oh, Jessica, I'm sorry.
sure, let's
There you
hear from Jessica first.
There you are. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Everybody moves around the screen nowadays.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Jessica Bremner. I'm the board chair of Park Watershed, which is a nonprofit here in Hartford that uses community engagement, scientific research, and ecological revitalization to cultivate clean water and healthy urban environments within the municipalities surrounding the Park River watershed, which includes Hartford. We're really, I'm here just to support the resolution. I think it's a great first step for the city in recognizing the importance of the Park River for both climate resiliency for the city as well as for the neighborhoods in mitigating climate change effects, specifically around flood mitigation. And so, yeah, I'm here just in support and to actually answer any questions if anything comes up that you are not able to answer.
Thank you. So I'll start with Councilman Gale.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, Madam Chair, you and I are sponsors of this resolution, so I'm obviously supportive of it. I'm fairly familiar with the North Branch of the Park River, a little bit less familiar with the South Branch of the Park River, but I certainly can testify to the fact that over the years, both branches have been somewhat neglected. It's always been very distressing to me to see the South Branch of the Park River off of Hamilton Street, where you're in a concrete conduit with a bunch of chain link fence around it. There's an old pedestrian bridge that's rotting away, if not been taken away at this point. And the whole scene is of a distressed nature. And the North Branch has seen parking lot after parking lot after parking lot developed on its east side with God knows what kind of drainage coming off of those parking lots directly into the Park River. And Councilman Sanchez has been incredibly helpful in educating all of us into the concepts of bioswales and these other improvements that have been made in drainage and catch basins and ways in which we can improve water quality. So, I love the fact that Ms. Bremner's group is been created to promote these areas, and I certainly think that we on the city side should do what we can to support these efforts to try to use these rivers and improve the quality of our life in that way. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman LeBron.
So I've read the resolved clause through you, Madam Chair. And so, Ms. Bremer, like what I'm having a hard time understanding is like what is going to be done. Like I understand the importance of improving these areas, collaborating with neighborhoods, and reducing our carbon footprint. I'm all for all that, but I don't know exactly what is being done. Can you explain, like, how do you plan to operationalize this resolution? What is step one, a plan or what have you? I just have a hard time conceptualizing what's going on.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think I might be able to answer that from the city side to the good councilman. Within this resolution, it's talking about collaboration. I can say just from my time in the Office of Sustainability, we have been actively collaborating with community stakeholders on, I guess, to start seeking out grant funding, looking into feasibility of management plans for that specific area so that we can operationalize a resolution. So we have a plan in place and looking for different ways that we can hold people accountable, not just with the city, because we know watersheds extend beyond our city limits, but also conversations we've had with CROG so that they can be almost a mediator between municipalities that are involved. So I can say those conversations are actively happening, and I believe they're going to continue. And I'm hoping that we have fruition in finding funding and grants and things like that, and bringing all those stakeholders to the table. So I can say those are conversations that have begun and will continue after this resolution, if passed.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So again, just through you, Madam Chair. So the thought is to create the foundation that we can build off of so we could get more monies and infrastructure and apply for grants and do the work. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, I want to say through you, Madam Chair, I just want to thank you so much, you and also Councilman Gale, for submitting this resolution, because it's been a long time coming. We have a beautiful Park River, but as Councilman Gale mentioned, is basically it's a hidden gem that it hasn't been taken care of for so many years. As a kid, I used to play out in the river. Luckily, I never drowned, but it is a beautiful area. I've walked it. I've tried to tour it myself. The thickness is fairly challenging to get through, but if you could, there are trails there, and I think it's about time that this resolution finally came up. We need to start taking care of what we have here and maintain it. And find a way to get the funding for it. And also, by doing this, it will help resolve not all of the flooding, but quite a bit of the flooding that's happening in the Blue Hills neighborhood. Also here on New Britain Avenue in the west end, the southwest corner of the city of Hartford, especially when we have these unprecedented storms, 2 or 3 inches of rain within an hour or so. It's going to be helpful. And I believe that there's homes over there in Scarborough who actually gets flooded out just as much. So thank you so much, Councilwoman Rossetti and Councilman John Gale. And I would love to add my name to this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. With that, do we have a motion?
I'll move to send this back to council with a favorable recommendation.
I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Excuse me. I sneezed in the middle of it.
Bless you.
Okay, motion approved. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. It's nice meeting you. And thank you, Adam. That brings us to our third agenda item, which is an update report of the official process for park renovations and current park construction projects at Bushnell, Forester, Goodwin, Colt, Elizabeth, and Keeney Parks. I have presented by Director Looney and City Engineer Frank Della Ripa, but I am told we will now have Nat Gale do the presentation.
Yes, good evening, council members, and thank you for having us here. I'm Nat Gale, Director of Capital Projects and Operations. Of course, I am joined by Director Looney, City Engineer Frank Della Ripa, and our architect Julia Jack from Public Works to talk through the many different park projects that we have underway. So I'll be sharing my screen to talk through park project updates. I'll just start by saying many of you may recall in this year's CIP budget process, we have slightly reorganized our capital program around asset classes, right? 5 different asset classes: schools, infrastructure, transportation and mobility, facilities, and parks. So parks is one of our main asset classes, which means we've got a lot of work going on. We've got a lot of great parks. They're a crown jewel of the city, and there's a lot of work to be done in each of them. So this presentation is going to cover the 7 different parks that Madam Chair covered: Bushnell Park, Goodwin Park, Colt Park, Elizabeth Park, Keeney Park, Pope Park, and Forester Park. I will note that within each of these parks, there are multiple projects. So we're actually going to be talking about 21 different projects today, which is, I think a testament to the just volume of activity that we have going on here in the city through the support of this council. We really have been able to make a lot of strides in our park system, and it means we've got a lot going on. That's a lot to do with very limited staff and limited time. So we're really doing everything we can to move these along the best we can. In order to sort of standardize the information based on the direction from Madam Chair, each project will have a template slide for the information we'll be sharing with you. So I just wanted to cover that so you all sort of understand what we'll be going over. Of course, we'll talk about the project name. We'll also talk about the project phase. This is related to what Chairwoman was talking about in terms of about a project in one of these 4 phases. Planning is when we're first just starting to plan what types of activities, what types of investments we're interested in making in our park. Once we, those are conversations with our friend groups, conversations with these bodies. Once we determine what we're going to be focusing on, we move into the design stage. That's typically when we bring an architect on and we bring some sort of designer on to develop construction documents. Once the construction documents are developed, we go into a bid and award phase. That can take anywhere from 1 to 3 months. Sometimes longer, depending on if we don't get any bid responses. So that phase can be quite extensive. And then we move into the construction phase. So each of the projects will name what phase we're in, as well as then when we expect that phase to be complete. Typically, we work in these, phase milestones. So if we're in a design phase, when we're contractually, expecting that to be complete. Same with construction. You'll see that most of the projects are either in our design or construction phase, though we have some in planning or bid and award. We'll talk about the available budget for each project, as well as what has been spent to date. In some cases, that spent to date is 0 because it's a newly allocated budget. But in some cases, we've been making project and the project is making progress and the project is almost complete. We'll talk about the funding source as well as a general project summary. So for each park, I'll give a highlight of the projects that are underway for each park. And then we'll show these details for each individual project. So we are going to start with Bushnell Park project. So we have 4 projects currently underway in Bushnell Park. The first is Bushnell Park sidewalks and lighting on the east side. The second is sidewalks and lighting on the west side. We are also talking about pond dredging in Bushnell Park, as well as a project at the pump house. And I'll just note, Chairwoman, at any point, please stop me if you have questions for any of these projects. So Bushnell Park, sidewalks and lighting east on the east side. This is a project that is in the construction phase with a completion date of this summer, 2022. We anticipate the contractor to be complete. We have an available budget of around 2.6 million with about 2.5 spent to date. That's a good indication that the project is almost complete. And this is funded through the Hartford Parks Trust Fund. Here we have a contractor completing flexible paving around the skating rink and finishing punch list items for the sidewalk and lighting contract on the east side of the park. So many of you may have walked through Bushnell Park recently. You'll see, new sidewalks and new lighting features on the east side of the park. On the west side, the budget that was allocated from the trust fund was only sufficient to cover the east side, but we do have an interest in completing the full park. So we are in construction phase. We did complete the design for the full park, but we had to identify additional funding to move into construction for the west side. So we're looking at a projected completion for construction on the west side of next year, fall 2023. With an available budget currently of $800,000 that was approved in this year's capital budget that will get us started. That funding source again is CIP. Nothing has been spent to date because we're just starting this project up. And again, this will be updated sidewalks and lighting on the west side of the park. We are also projecting an additional need to complete this project of around $1 to $1.7 million. And I apologize for the typo. That should be in fiscal year 24. So we approved 800 in fiscal year 23, and in fiscal year 24, we are projecting another 1 to 1.7 to complete that project. Moving on to the pond dredging project in Bushnell Park. This is something that we are in the design phase for. We are projecting completing that design for the pond dredging this fall. We have an available budget of $160,000 to complete the design, with $128,500 spent to date. This is a project where we are splitting the funding source between the Hartford Parks Trust Fund and the Capital Improvement Plan. There was a small delta that was approved in this year's Capital Improvement Plan, given some increase in design costs. And that's the amount that we're funding from the Capital Improvement Plan. Again, we've got a design consultant underway. It's commenced with the design, and this will include the option of moving the skating rink over to the pond. Construction of this dredging is estimated in the $2 to $3 million range. We have Frank Delarip, our city engineer, in his tenure here has overseen one pond dredging project in Goodwin Park, and so we have some decent numbers on what that it will involve, and so that helps inform our understanding for construction for this project, which we do not yet have a funding source identified for that. I'll cover the last Bushnell Park project, and then I'll pause for questions on Bushnell Park, and that is the Pump House Gallery. So this is something that we are doing in concert with the Bushnell Park Foundation in the construction phase. With a projected completion of this summer, approximately $200,000 available, with nothing yet spent to date. This is funded through our capital improvement plan, where we are working with the Bushnell Park Foundation to gather estimates for replacing the concrete slab and underground drainage piping just outside the Pump House Gallery. So those are that's the full picture of what we have going on in Bushnell Park. Next up is Goodwin Park, but before I go there, I'll pause to see if there are any questions from the committee.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Through you, Madam Chair. So Nat, flexible sidewalk, what does that mean?
That's a great question. I'll ask staff from the Department of Public Works who are managing this contract, either Frank or his colleague Julia, to talk a little bit about the flex pave in Bushnell Park.
Actually, Nat, I guess I'll jump in.
Oh, sure.
Here
Yep.
quick. Through you, Madam Chair, Councilman Sanchez, the flexible pavement is it's a pervious pavement material that we've initially installed around where the skating rink goes in the wintertime and kind of behind the pump house. It allows water to permeate through rather than run off as it would on a bituminous surface or a concrete surface. So it's just a more environmentally sensitive selection of material. Unfortunately, when it was first installed, there was some problems with the installation, and so we've had to have the contractor come back and redo the work, at no additional cost to the city. But the first go around, we had some issues, but that's actually being worked on now as we speak. So Julia or Frank, if I missed any details there, feel free to jump in.
So I just want to say I you just helped me remember. So I'm very familiar with the flexible paving. It's not concrete, it's not rubber, but it's a combination of some kind of material. And then once it's worn out, you can actually repair it by just filling it in with the same material, correct? It's kind of glued together somehow.
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. Is this the same material that's on Main Street in front of the MDC?
Yeah, it's a different manufacturer, same material.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, so moving on to Goodwin Park, we have 3 current projects in and around the vicinity of Goodwin Park. The first is the golf course clubhouse area. The second project is irrigation on the golf course. And the third is related to an entrance as well as sidewalk and lighting improvements on Maple Avenue. So this first project, golf course clubhouse area, is currently in the design phase. We have a designer on board. Their projected completion date is this fall. This project has a current total budget allocated of $1.7 million. The designer's on board, but we have not yet expended any funds yet. They haven't submitted any invoices. And this is funded through the capital improvement program. So the design contract is approximately $100,000. The scope of this work will include concepts for an expanded clubhouse, will include looking at new golf cart paths as well as drainage improvements, leveling the practice green area, ADA access to the driving range, increasing parking and lighting in the parking lot, as well as upgrades to the golf cart barn, which will allow for electric carts. That's a lot of work to include. And so, you know, upon completing that design, the remaining funds of that 1.7 will have to, you know, prioritize those efforts to spend that 1.7 and begin, and this work is already beginning to identify additional funds to complete all of the design efforts included in that scope of work. So that is the golf, what's included in this work around the golf course clubhouse area. Moving to the irrigation project, this is one of those exceptions. It's not in design or construction. It's currently in the bid and award phase. So design has been completed. We are out to bid. That bid and award phase we expect to be completed this fall at the latest. That project includes an available budget of about $4.1 million. And that is funded through the Hartford Parks Trust Fund, the Capital Improvement Program, and the state of Connecticut. So this is where we've had to assemble multiple funding sources simply because of the scope, scale, and complexity of the project. So this is a project where we did bid this previously in the year, and we had a low bidder identified. But unfortunately, due to rising costs, due to some of the challenges involved in this contract, that low bidder backed out of the contract. So that's why we are back out on the street with a construction RFP. This project also, it includes 2 different phases. Initially, the first phase was going to be sort of changing the trunk line and constructing a new pump station. But based on Mike and his team's assessment, we're changing the phasing of this project to first address the most pressing need, which is replacing the old and leaking lines in the golf course themselves, the irrigation lines. So that will be phase 1, which will replace the irrigation piping at a total amount of approximately $4 million. That's again what we have assembled, the 4.1. And that will be drawn from the state funds and Hartford Parks Trust Fund. And then phase 2 will be once we have the piping done, in each of the different holes and courses, then we will construct the new pump station, pond pump well controls, and the main pipe spur. That will be the final piece that gets us, off of MDC water and onto just the water that's in the park. And that final piece is a total value of approximately $1.5 to $1.6 million. And then our last Goodwin Park project, and then I'll again pause for questions, is improvements to the entrance and lighting on Maple. This project is in the design phase with a projected completion date of winter 23. So that would be early 2023. This is a $2 million budget. This was money that was recently allocated and identified with the thanks of Representative Vargas, as well as our community leader, Ms. Hyacinth. So they got this funding on the State Bond Commission for sidewalks and lighting on Maple from Preston to South Street, including an upgrade to then the park entrance for Goodwin Park at Maple. This is something that you all will actually see on your council agenda next week, because we have to formally accept the funding from the state in order to proceed. Before we can actually take any actions, we have to formally accept that funding. So that is a resolution that is submitted for you to consider at your next full council meeting. And that is that's the last of the Goodwin Park project. So I'll pause for questions on that. Seeing none, hearing none, Madam Chair, I'll continue proceeding. Okay. So Colt Park is our next park. We have 3 projects at Colt Park. The first is the Shade and Pavilion project. The second is the design and construction of what will be our first outdoor futsal court in the city of Hartford. It's pretty exciting, as well as some phase 2 improvements for Colt Park. So the Shade and Pavilion project is currently under construction with completion date of right around now. Spring 2022 ends in June, so we're pretty close. Available budget is around $800,000, with the majority of that being spent with the funding source of Hartford Parks Trust Fund. So this is the installation.
Can I ask a quick question, Nat? Do you mind?
Yeah, please. Please.
So when we talk about and again, maybe I missed this somewhere, when these budgets, in other words, how do I want to say this? Available budget, it's from the trust fund, completion date. When did all these monies obviously circle in at different points? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, each funding source has its own process, right? So the Hartford Parks Trust Fund, I believe there was a process through PRAC, City Council, the Treasurer, and the Mayor many years ago to sort of identify a priority list, and we're just about nearing the end of that list of projects. So I would say that you, as a body, should anticipate a new prioritized look at projects out of the Hartford Parks Trust Fund in the coming months. That's something that we're looking at. Then in the annual budgeting process, if, for example, a project doesn't have enough funding in the Hartford Parks Trust Fund, I'll work with Mike and Frank and their team to say, okay, we've got a $250,000 delta that we've got to fund. Let's put that into the CIP budget and ask for your approval to add that. And then, the state funding, that, we don't always have a ton of input on how much the state allocates. Oftentimes, we try to work with our state delegation, but sometimes they will just say, hey, we've identified this dollar amount, and then, it's on us to scope projects around that, right? So I'd say it varies certainly by project, but hopefully that answered your question. Happy to expand on it.
Do you have that document somewhere, or should I know where it is?
Which document are you referring to?
That shows when they all were and were coming to an end. Is that somewhere?
The trust fund, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
And these
yes, I can provide that to you. And all I'm just, if you see me looking away at any point, it's just because I'm taking notes from our conversation here.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Okay. So shade structures over Roberto Clemente bleachers, new pavilion on the north side of the park. Actually, this project has been completed. So it's not that it will be completed in spring, it has been completed. Futsal court. So this again was identified in the Colt Park master plan. Project phase is construction. We are hoping for a quick construction period, so this would be completed before the winter moratorium, with an available budget of $775,000 out of our capital improvement program. Contract is signed and the work has commenced on the futsal court construction in Colt Park. And then last, Colt Park Phase 2. So we are in a design phase to look at some additional improvements out of the master plan. The efforts of that design should be completed this fall. We have approximately $500,000, excuse me, out of the CIP. And I know that Mike and Frank and his team have started to scope improvements, starting with the handicap entrance and gating on the west side of the park. This is an area of the gating that is permanently open. So I know it's where there's a lot of ATV activity. And so creating a gate as well as creating a handicap entrance will help keep some of those ATVs out of the park. We're also looking at using some of this funding to include clearing some of the overgrowth along Wawarmi. And there's additional scoping underway with Mike and the DPW team and the Friends of Colt Park group. So those are the 3 Colt Park projects. Elizabeth Park will be next, but I'll stop to see if there are any additional questions for those projects.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Councilman LeBron.
So just a quick question through you, Madam Chair. We've heard from multiple occasions, and I've heard constituents directly to have a stair structure or an access point on the Wawarmi side. Has that been looked at all in terms of most people park on that Wawarmi side once the parking lot gets full? Any discussions around that, Mr. Gale?
That's a great question. I'll defer to Director Looney and his team. They are much more involved in the scoping elements of these projects. Mike, I don't know if you or anybody has anything to comment on that.
Yeah, sure. Through you, Madam Chair. Actually, that concept was something the mayor and I had discussed a while back, and it's something we want to take a closer look at. The possibility of clearing up some of that, as we have in our slide here. Clearing up the overgrowth along Wawarmi, and possibly adding some sort of trail feature behind the outfield fence at Johnny Taylor Field 9, and then going over to the new soccer field that we have over there and connecting in with that with a stair structure. Councilman LeBron, you're correct. A lot of the foot traffic comes in from Wawarmi, and that certainly would be something that would from a design standpoint would make sense, and something we're probably going to be looking at.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on Colt? All right, moving along to Elizabeth Park. We have 4 different top projects to talk about here. One is the Conservancy greenhouses. The second, and I have to get this right because last time I was chastised for the pronunciation of this, the Phelan basketball courts.
And who would have chastised you, Mr. Gale?
The Phelan basketball court, excuse me.
And who would have chastised? Who would have chastised you? Who would have been? Would that be Councilman Gale that would have chastised you?
I must have practiced that a dozen times, and I still got it wrong. The Phelan basketball court, and then we have the East Lawn master plan design as well as the East Lawn master plan construction. So starting with the Conservancy greenhouses, this is a project that is in the construction phase. That will be completed early next year, so winter 2023. $1.5 million from the state of Connecticut through DECD through the state bonding process to support the rehabilitation of the historic greenhouses as overseen by the Elizabeth Park Conservancy. So Madam Chair, to your point earlier, there are also cases where we serve as a pass-through entity for some of our community partners. So this is one example of that, where we will, we'll be working with the Conservancy to direct funds from the state. The Conservancy then has to comply with all of our municipal regulations as well as the state regulations for, contracting and procurement. But we help them with some of the administrative elements of that. So that's this Conservancy Greenhouses project. The Phelan basketball court is also under construction. We are hoping that this project can be completed in fall of 2022. We've got a budget allocated of $150,000. Nothing is spent to date because, the project is funded again through that same DECD state bond funding source. I'll just note, I was meeting with our public works leads on this today, and this was recently out to bid. Unfortunately, we did not get any bids. So we have to do some additional, phone calls to our contractor community to understand, what is it just that everybody's so busy? How can we make sure that we advertise this again and get some good response? Because, again, we've got the funding identified, and we want to make sure that this is something where we get it constructed and people can enjoy an updated basketball court. So then, in that same vein, in that same funding source, we've allocated some money to look at sort of zooming out on the East Lawn and overseeing a master planning process. So this will be a design project that we anticipate to be completed in winter of next year. $350,000 is allocated currently, again, through this DECD state bond funding. This is work that the West End Civic Association has started. They've actually done some excellent preliminary site planning around some of the values and some of the different elements of the site that they're interested in focusing on. And Mike and Frank and Julia and their team will be hiring either a landscape architect or some other designer to help finalize master plan efforts. And if the design effort is less than $350,000, which we do anticipate it will be, the remaining funds can be used for priority implementation of some of the projects that come out of that master planning effort. I'll also note that we may also find that $150,000 for the Phelan basketball court isn't sufficient. This funding source gives us some flexibility to use in the event that that basketball court construction is $200,000 instead. And related to that, in what continues to just be excellent support from our state delegation, we have additional funds for the East Lawn Master Plan to support continued construction of the projects that come out of that master planning effort. The phase completion date here is listed as on hold just because we have to see the outcome of the design effort before we can start projecting construction timelines. But here's where we have another $350,000. This one is coming through DEEP as opposed to DECD. And again, I'll note, similar to the $2 million on Maple Avenue around Goodwin Park, this is one where we will need to accept the funds. Council will need to formally accept the funds. So that will also be on your agenda next Monday for consideration. So those are the Elizabeth Park projects. Next up is Keeney, but I will pause for any questions on Elizabeth Park.
I do know, and again, it seems like it's not a discussion right now because you didn't even get anybody for the basketball court. There was discussion at one of the last couple of meetings that we were clear that we wouldn't interrupt basketball, obviously, but now it doesn't seem to be an issue because we didn't even get any bids. So we just wanted to make sure, because of what's existing in the park, that it didn't take away to redo something. So
yeah, great point.
That's a good point, Councilwoman. That's a challenge for us on a lot of these projects, because we're keeping it's not like we're shutting the parks down and just making them a construction site, because we don't want to deprive the community of the use of those parks. So it is sort of a complicated maneuvering act to get the construction done while also still permitting our folks to still be able to use the assets that they deserve. So
yep, no, we know, and we appreciate you just bringing it up again. But now that you didn't get a bid, but we will.
We will. Yeah. And I'll just, I would be remiss, I'm sure all of you know, but I would be remiss for not mentioning Eric Crawford, who has been just a real champion for that project.
You think? Do you think, Eric, are you listening? Please don't call me. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so moving along to Keeney, we have two projects at Keeney. One is general park improvements, and then a second is improvements to the golf course. So park improvements, this is in the design phase. We anticipate design will be completed this fall. We do have an available budget of $1 million in our capital improvement program. The design that's currently underway is related to some deterioration and drainage around the Woodland parking lot. And speaking with our city engineer, I've heard that, kids who wait for the school bus there sometimes will be standing in water because the water can't drain. So that's definitely, a critical issue that we want to address. Construction cost for that is currently estimated around $485,000. And we want to make sure that we're working closely with the Friends group, Friends of Keeney Park, to identify use for the additional funds that are currently allocated here. And then we have our golf course project. This is also currently in design. We expect the design to, be underway and completed this fall. We have a total budget of $3 million, again, through DECD, the state bond funding. And this supports various projects at the golf course, the priority of which include a continuously paved golf path, so that, the course can operate even when it rains, expanding the size of the maintenance building through its foundation, as well as fixing a current leak in the clubhouse, in the basement of the clubhouse. There are other sort of smaller projects that our golf operations manager, Bill Rosenblum, has identified, but those are the priority, that we will work through with this funding. So that's it for Keeney. Next is Pope, but I'll pause if there are any questions on the Keeney Park projects. All right, hearing none, moving along to Pope. We have 4 projects for Pope Park. The first is T-ball field. Second is Bankside Grove. Third is looking at both Baby Pope and Pope Park Highway for potential improvements. And then some significant bond funding that is still being scoped. So the first project, the T-ball field, is in construction and should be completed this summer. With an available budget of close to $550,000, spent to date around $330,000. The funding sources, again, is a combination here of CIP and state bond funding. And the contractor, if you've been by Pope, you'll see that the work that's underway. They're finalizing grading and drainage of the field, completing 2 batting cages as well. And I know there was a meeting recently with the Friends of Pope Park. They have identified that they have pitching protectors that they'd like to be donating for these fields. So that's exciting to have these fields up and running this summer. Next is Bankside Grove, which is currently under design, anticipated to complete design this fall. Available budget for this is $400,000. And the design for this will include a trail that begins on Laurel Street and will end at the new roundabout, gorgeous new roundabout. And Friends of Pope also would like to explore additional safety features in this area, potentially relocating a brownstone circle. We're also looking at the Pope Park Designated Fund as another potential funding source, again, should the costs of this design effort exceed what we have allocated. Next is Baby Pope and Pope Park Highway. These are lumped together because they are currently in the planning phase. So again, planning is the very beginning, right? We haven't started design. We're really just starting to think about what makes sense at either of these locations. Again, these are priorities identified by the Friends of Pope. So we anticipate those conversations to be ongoing through the summer and fall. We do have $400,000 allocated that we envision splitting between Baby Pope and Pope Park Highway. Again, thinking about improvements that include updates to the splash pad at Baby Pope and a potential pedestrian loop that would connect to that new Bankside Grove area as well. Through that roundabout, that would make it one sort of seamless connection of those parts of Pope Park, and then Pope Park Highway, right, sort of closer to Bartholomew, would include looking at features to enhance the sense of place, right? How can we make the Pope Park Highway area more enlivened? Have more opportunities for attraction and activity. And this is sort of the planning effort underway currently for these two areas. And then last but certainly not least, recently Senator Fanfara, allocated a significant amount of funding, $7.5 million for improvements to streetscapes and Pope Park. So we include this here because it mentions Pope Park in the the line item name for the project. We know that the senator is having conversations with the legislative and community leaders on how to allocate this funding. I would say, from my vantage point, I don't have a ton of line of sight into what some of those conversations have involved, but I would say I do believe that this money is not just for Pope Park, but will include some streetscape projects as well. So I think we all are awaiting the outcome of those community conversations. So that is Pope Park. Last but not least is Forester Park, but I'll wait to see if there are any conversations on Pope.
Madam Chair, I've got a quick question and a quick comment, if I may.
Councilman Gale and then Councilman LeBron.
Thank you. So this is to anyone on the screen. You discussed Pope Park Highway, and in my lifetime, it's always been known as Pope Park Highway number 4. And of course, that's always begged the question as to what is Pope Park Highway number 3, 2, or 1. And this just seems like an appropriate place to throw that question out in case anybody here ever knew why that was called Pope Park number 4.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do need to apologize to the councilman that he has asked this question of me previously, and I have not been able to identify an answer. I will continue to try to track down numbers 1, 2, and 3. I'm sure we have a map somewhere.
I actually have the answer if you guys don't mind.
Oh, great. Please.
So if you look at it from north to south, Councilman Gale, Baby Pope is Pope 1. Then the trail where the roundabout goes to Pope Park is Pope 2. The Pope that we know is Pope Park 3. And then the Pope Park Highway is Pope 4. That's how I've always been taught.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I think you made that up, but go ahead.
Listen, that was asked a while ago.
He said it with such authority that I'm buying it,
Is that the one in front of Colba?
Yeah, that's the one in front of Colba, exactly.
Yep. Exactly.
And my comment is it's somewhat facetious comment, but you talked about enlivening that area of the park where Pope Park Highway is. And just note that the entrance to the Pope Park, to the Park River conduit is right there in that vicinity. And as someone who has actually taken a canoe and gone from that conduit right down to the Connecticut River, if you want to enliven Pope Park, get canoe tours going, and we could make a bundle of money. I'm sure lots of people would pay to do what I did. It was very exciting, and well, for anybody that considers this any bit dangerous, it's clearly not dangerous. The water was no more than about 1 foot to 18 inches deep at any point along the way, and there's nothing living in there. So anyway, quick, that was my comment.
All right. Sign me up.
And don't sign me up. Go ahead, Nat, keep going.
So no, I had a question.
Oh yes, Councilman LeBron.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Chair. So real quick, the opportunity at Pope Park number 2, which connects at the roundabout to Pope Park, that trail opportunity there, just a suggestion, I have walked that before or tried to walk that, Director Looney, and the question, I guess the comment I have is visibility. There's a lot of brush, and so there could be legitimate safety concerns if people wanted to walk that area in terms of visibility on either side. But there's tremendous opportunity there, and I'm excited about having that as a space to connect Baby Pope and, or, you know, the regular Pope Park. But I just think it needs to be widened and lighting particularly, or whatever it is. But the last one is around Pope Park Highway, or Pope Park number 4. On the east side of that, more facing that fence, there seems to be a lot of people that populate there and potentially live there. Has there been any thoughts to try to address that? Has there been any outreach efforts? What are we planning to do with that potential community, and what are we planning to do with that side?
So you, through you, Madam Chair, yes, Councilman, to your first point about Bankside Grove, I completely agree with you that the safety and the sight lines need to be improved. Lighting, from our preliminary concept sketches, lighting is included in there. And obviously, as I said, clearing back some of that brush so you improve the sight lines and just get more eyes on that area would obviously need to be a priority in the design of that space. On Pope Park Highway, there has been I believe it was last fall, when city staff did reach out to the community that was there, and the community of folks who were living kind of it's almost in the I-84 right of way, the DOT property. And they were relocated and given access to services through city staff who are designated to do that. And our blight remediation team went in there and cleared out a whole significant area that had been populated for a while. But you know, as we all know, these encampments do continue to come up, and it's something we're probably going to have to address on an ongoing basis. But we do have city staff who are tasked to handle that in concert with our parks division and our BRT team.
Thank you.
All right. So our last project here is Forester Park, which is just one project, the park improvements at Forester Park. So here we are in, again, the bid and award phase. So the design has been developed. And, you know, I think the Public Works team is preparing as of today to get it out to the street to get construction bids. So we expect, again, that bid and award phase to be completed over the summer. And the available budget is to be determined. You know, we'll have to see what we get back from the contracting community, currently estimated at around $900,000. And we're exploring the Hartford Parks Trust Fund and potential surplus funding to fund Forester Park. The improvements here are a new splash pad, upgrades to the existing playscape, again, that FlexiPave that we discussed earlier, upgrades to the basketball court, picnic and small amphitheater area. All of the walkways will be redone, a gazebo will be added, a new fence will be installed, parking area will be updated. So, you know, really this is a comprehensive update and redesign to the Forester Park area. So I know this is something that's been talked about for a while. We're excited to get this project going as well.
And Director Looney, you know, you and I have had discussions about this. The neighborhood has been very active, and particularly Colin has followed up with me consistently, so we keep this on our radar. This is a priority for me, certainly, and I know you said certainly you're investigating the trust fund or other potential surplus, but can you make a commitment this is something that will get done?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I can make that commitment. I know that Nat has spoken with the mayor about this recently as well, and he has also identified it as a critical project to get done. So we are going to find a way to get this done.
Without a doubt, you'll hear that commitment from Director Looney and from myself. We're committed to this, which is why we're going out to bid now.
Thank you very much.
I'll just note I believe we had another typo here for Forster. So I'll make sure that gets updated in any final presentation. And that's it. That's all 21 projects. So thank you for the opportunity to brief you. You know, I think you all know how hard Mike Looney works. I can't.
Mike who?
I can't say enough about what he and Frank and Julia and their teams do to deliver quality projects for the people of the city of Hartford. And our parks really are indicative of that hard work.
Well, I think I can speak for the committee and my council colleagues who are here, not on the committee, that we're a part of this because we do view the parks and what Public Works does is such an integral part of what our city is about. And Nat, I appreciate, I know you and I had a discussion earlier, and I was a little tentative in my thoughts, and I must apologize. So thank you very much. But are there any comments for the end of the presentation? Councilman LeBron.
I just want to say thank you. When it comes to presentations, you know, I've always been taught that if there's not a lot of questions, it's either the presentation is really good or it was really bad. And so on the spectrum, I think it was really good.
It was really bad. No.
No, most of my presentations are bad, but nonetheless, I just want to say thank you for the detailed. You broke it down in a very detailed way, and it made it very easy to follow along. So I appreciate all the time, energy, and effort that was put into this document. It shows, and thank you for doing that.
And can you send us that document?
Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilman Sanchez.
I just want to say ditto to that. Great presentation. I really don't have any questions. Thank you, Councilwoman Rossetti, for having this presentation brought to us at this moment. I think it was very timely. It was a lot of concerns out there. I'm pretty sure everyone here has been receiving those phone calls, the text, the message, everything you can imagine, especially Forster Park and Goodwin Park. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this happen. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, Director Looney and City Engineer Frank De La Ripa, everybody. I'm really excited. Thank you.
So yeah, who do we have left? We have, thank you, Troy. Thank you, Director Looney. Thank you, Jim Del Visco, Frank De La Ripa, Chris Hayes, Hartford Public Access TV, Julia Jack, Colin's still on, and Nat. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
So Councilman Gale.
And thank you, Chair.
Oh, well, there you go. So if there are no other comments, questions, I would make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No moves. Thank you all and have a good evening. See you soon.